Hey guys, it's Alex with Hammond Watch. I'm here today with the Rado Purple Horse. It's a 605-33094. And I'm a big fan of Rado as a brand. You know, they've done a lot of interesting things throughout the years. You know, I'm a little bit sad at where they've ended up now, but you know, I understand that they're trying to be successful in a modern market, and that means doing a couple of things specifically. But we'll touch on that at the end. Let's run through the sizing and specs real quick. You have a 36 millimeter case, although it's really closer to 36 and a quarter. The thickness here is 13 millimeters, but you know, about 4 millimeters of that is this domed acrylic crystal. I'm a huge fan of acrylic crystals, not only for the look that they give you, but they also just have this warm softness to the touch that you just don't get with harder materials like sapphire. You have a 4.5 millimeter crown, which feels a little bit petite but matches the overall proportions of the watch, and it is signed with the Rado logo. Your effective lug to lug, so right here kind of at the center of the end link, is 43 millimeters, which is kind of on par with most vintage watches of this size. What's not necessarily on par is the lug width being 20 millimeters. I find that a lot of older and vintage watches run at 18, 19, making it a little bit trickier. I mean, there's more options now for straps in those sizes than ever before, but having 20 millimeters, I feel like most watch collectors already have a bundle of straps they're not using that make it easy to swap in and play around. And with a watch as kind of subdued as this one, it's really going to be a strap monster, and you're going to be able to play around and make it more exciting or as kind of classic as you like. The bracelet, starting at 20 millimeters, tapers down really nicely to about 15.6, and then we're back up to 17 for the clasp. As you'd probably expect, you know, pressed metal, as was standard kind of operating procedure back in the day. You do get a nice healthy amount of micro adjust, and then at screw down case back with a pretty interesting Rado logo motif referencing that seahorse yet again. So really, this is like the perfect condition. The dial texturing and color itself is essentially mint, while you have a little bit of pitting and aging on the hands as well as the indices and that frame date window. It really gives it a sharp look and makes it feel like it was well taken care of, while also not shying away from its age. You know, the purple horses are a little bit more red, and the red logo is a little bit more pink than it used to be. But it all just kind of works together, and in general, it's a really sharp overall aesthetic. Powering the watch is an ETA 2872. We won't get into accuracy. I mean, this watch is running very well, but in general, any stated accuracies on a watch that's 20 years old, you know, they're going to be relatively useless. The main points to this are that you do get hand winding, although there is no hacking, so you're not going to be able to do that kind of precise time setting. But you also get a quick set date, which is always important to note on an older watch. If you've never ended up with a watch that doesn't have quick set, one day it'll happen for you, and you'll completely understand what I mean. You know, having to run through the entire time on the dial to get your date to change ends up being a little bit tricky. So me being lazier with those types of watches, I tend to set them aside until that date circles back around and then put them in the rotation, and they tend to fall in and out a little bit more than other watches. So here we are in my 7.5 to 7 3/4 inch wrist, and I really like the proportions and how it wears. You know, I wear a 36 millimeter about as comfortably as I wear a 44. You know, I think that, you know, variety is the spice of life, and I like to mix it up quite a bit. And it doesn't feel like a unisex watch or a women's watch by any stretch. You know, it's got a good presence, but at the same time, if I put it on a strap, my wife could also wear it no problem. And her being a watch collector a little bit in her own right, that's pretty appealing to me. You know, the bracelet's incredibly comfortable, although by today's standards, it's pretty poor quality. You know, folded links and pressed metal clasp. But overall, when you're wearing a vintage watch, that's kind of what you want. You don't want a big, hefty, over-engineered bracelet weighing the whole thing down. You want it to feel nice and light, the way watches of the past did. Alright, so let's touch on Rado as a brand real quick. And I'll be brief. I'm not one to stretch my videos out to 15, 20 minutes to talk your ear off on the whole brand history and every specification of every piece of the watch. I always just want to show you what it looks like, give you an idea of the sizing, the spec, and then get out. Maybe give you a couple of notes on my initial impressions. But Rado's they're a pretty interesting brand. They started in the 50s. It was really just a rebrand of a company called Schlup & Co. or maybe Schlup. I'm not entirely sure how it's pronounced. But throughout the years, they've really been known for off-the-wall designs, but it all started with these Seahorse watches. They have a green, silver, purple, and gold horse. The gold is my favorite, but the green was also incredibly popular. And it offered them the financial freedom to kind of forge their own path through the watch industry. And they did that through very weird designs and using interesting materials. It starts with the Dia-Star. In the early 60s, they released it as the first scratch-proof watch. And it was because they made the case out of tungsten carbide, much like you would see used in drill bits. They use it because it can deal with a tremendous amount of heat, and on the Mohs hardness scale, it rates right at the same as sapphire. So when you do a sapphire crystal watch, and then you do the tungsten carbide case, you're able to have a really, really durable package, and it was really interesting. They had to cut the case in kind of an awkward shape, but that's just because of the techniques that had to be used to work with the material. Which I think just adds to its coolness. And throughout the years past that, they've always just tried weird designs in different materials. Nowadays they've got some full ceramic pieces, which are pretty interesting. Even their dive watch, and not the Captain Cook, but the D-Star 200. I love that thing. It's very kind of shiny and weird and stylish, but I much prefer it to a lot of its competition. And honestly, the Captain Cook, that's kind of where the story ends for me. And I think it's an incredibly attractive watch. It's very well put together. It's very sharp. It's just kind of boring, for Rado at least. It's just like everything else. A vintage-inspired steel dive watch, ETA movement, for a couple grand. I'm not picking on you if you have one. They're great, and I would have one and wear one proudly, no question. It's just not what I want from Rado. What I want from them are funky designs and interesting materials, because that's what I see when I look at the logo. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Roy, thanks for lending this in. If you guys are interested in buying this watch or anything similar, he's a great resource for vintage watches. He's very well connected in southern Florida, and he'll be able to track down just about anything you need. His email is down below. He also has an eBay store where he deals in a lot of these, but let's try to keep the fees out of anything. He's a great guy to work with. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Also consider subscribing. I'm putting out at least 2 videos a week, and I hope to see you in the next one.